Welcome to my video where I talk about the initial stages of IVF. So the majority of my videos are all about my transfer cycle and you kind of getting to walk through that and experience it with me in real time. But there are a number of things that you have to go through before you get to that point. So once you've had that initial consultation with your provider, they'll set up your treatment plan. That initial stage might look so much different for you depending on why you're there for IVF, the causes of your infertility, etc. So again, this is just what my experience was like. So once you have that consultation, they'll probably want to schedule you for some assessments. If you're there for infertility, they'll want to know why you are infertile, or why you're having trouble getting pregnant, because that might involve other treatment that either they won't be able to do there, or you have to do that before you can actually start the actual IVF process. So for me, what that assessment period looked like was I had to get my period, so they had to kind of like get your cycle started. So you start off with cycle day 1. And then once your period is over, that'll be the time where they'll want to do something called a saline ultrasound. A saline ultrasound it's a procedure. You're not sedated for it, but they do usually encourage you to take a high dose of ibuprofen because it can involve a lot of cramping afterwards. In the saline ultrasound, they insert a really thin, long catheter up your area to look at all of your reproductive organs. So they're looking at your ovaries, your fallopian tubes, your uterus. They're looking at all of it to just check it all out, see if you have any cysts or polyps or damage or blockage. Like those are all possibilities as to why you're having trouble getting pregnant. But through that catheter, what they do is they eject a saline solution that enlarges certain parts of that area for you. That is the part that can be painful, and it feels like really kind of extreme period cramping is kind of what that feels like. Now, I've had 2 of those done. I had one done at one clinic. I started at a clinic and I moved to this other one where things were more successful. But my first saline ultrasound, it was very painful. I was not prepared for it. And it lasted about 45 minutes. So it was a horrible experience. However, when I went to my second clinic, when I went to the other clinic, getting started there, the procedure there took 5 to 10 minutes, and it was basically just like an uncomfortable pap smear. So I'm hoping your experience will be more like my second one, and I think my second experience was actually more common. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. If you are, please ask your treatment team and the person doing the ultrasound any concerns or questions that you have. So once they get the results from that, they can determine your treatment plan based on that. My results were, thankfully, that there was nothing wrong that they could see. Everything was clear, so we were able to just kind of move on to the next steps under the diagnosis of unexplained infertility. All right, so that's kind of the assessment period. The next period, so the first cycle here, which is kind of going to be common for anyone going through IVF. This one might look a lot more common as compared to the assessment period. The next cycle is going to be the egg retrieval. For me, that was probably the worst cycle. I'm going to say definitely that was the worst cycle. More so just because it's really uncomfortable, and there's just so much bloating and fatigue as your body kind of does what they want it to do for the most, I guess, kind of like lucrative egg retrieval you could possibly have. What the egg retrieval looks like is, again, that cycle will start with your period. So if you have a natural period, they might just wait for it to start. For me, I had to do birth control and then come off the birth control so that my period could start. And they call that then cycle day 1. The first 2 to 3 weeks of that cycle will be a lot of medications. If you look at my medication overview video, a lot of those are going to be similar or the same to what you do in the egg retrieval. The whole purpose of those first 2 to 3 weeks is to stimulate the growth of as many eggs as possible. and get them to a really good size. I think when they're at a certain size, it's kind of ideal that they can use those. If they don't grow to a certain size, they can't use those eggs for fertilization. So that's why like there is so much bloating, I think, involved with that, because in a natural cycle, your body would only grow and develop one egg, whereas for an egg retrieval, they're trying to grow as many as possible. So those are going to be the first 2 to 3 weeks of that. The egg retrieval process itself is about 20 to 30 minutes long. You do go under anesthesia for it. At least that's what I did, and from what I understand, that's pretty common. So it will be kind of like an outpatient surgery type of a thing. Mine lasted probably about a total of 3 hours from the time I got there to the time I left. And what they do while you're under anesthesia is they retrieve all the eggs that your body created, so that they can try fertilizing those. In the next couple weeks, fortunately, there's no medication involved. So basically your body is really just recovering from that egg retrieval. It was a very big process to go through. So those next 2 weeks are just going to be your body recovering before they can start the next phase, which is going to be the transfer cycle. Another thing I can add to that too is that on egg retrieval day, so when you go into the clinic for your egg retrieval, if you have a partner, your partner will give his sample so that they can pull out as many healthy swimmers as they need to try to fertilize the eggs that they get. If you're using a donor, I think they probably, I don't know what that's like actually. I haven't used a donor. My partner has been the one that's been donating his sperm so that we can use it. But they will collect the sample that day. So while you're recovering, while you're waking up from anesthesia, they will be able to tell you, how many eggs they retrieved. And they just tell you how many eggs were retrieved. You'll get calls later that will tell you how many eggs were fertilized. And then they'll tell you how many grew to day 5 or day 6, depending on what your clinic does. For me, they grew mine to day 5. So what they do is they fertilize your eggs that day, and then they'll let you know how many actually fertilized. And then they let those embryos actually grow and develop until they're at a certain stage. And they do that so that they can kind of weed out the ones that don't grow, past like day 1 or day 3. The ones that get to day 5, I guess, are kind of the most likely to attach and grow into healthy babies. So just from my experience, I'll tell you kind of what the results were for my egg retrievals. The first time we went, they retrieved 15 eggs from me. 8 of them fertilized, and 3 of them made it to day 5. And out of those 3, only 1 worked. So that was my experience the first time. This second time around, they actually retrieved 28 eggs from me. They retrieved 28 eggs. Let me think. I think 15 fertilized, and then 8 actually grew to healthy stages. So that was a much more successful one. I have 8 eggs to work with now. So that's where I'm at. That's what the egg retrieval looked like, and also that first cycle of assessment. I hope yours goes really smooth. From my experience, like, this is kind of a standard way that they run things. So hopefully this does apply to you, and you also have a successful egg retrieval. All right. Thank you, as always, for watching. I hope you watch the rest of my videos as I go through the transfer process.